They're Yudansha, they're either Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, Yondan, whatever their rank is. However, since it's very obvious the belt they have on, it's caught on in the Western world, that you call them a black belt, okay? So you'll have students you will not be able to argue this with, and you will not be able to explain this to, because their instructors perpetuate the myth because they do not understand this. So there are people out there teaching the martial arts that do not understand this, okay? So Kano Jigoro was the father of modern judo. And it's very clear that he was the person who developed it. Okay, can I rephrase, or can I restate your question? Okay. So when did the purpose of Kendo or Kenjutsu switch to Kendo? When did it switch from being a battlefield practice to being a self-development practice? Okay. It was before World War II. The problem is that Kendo was being used as a military training device at the Toyama Military Academy. It was being taught as a military practice, Kendo. They were actually teaching people to use the sword by the practice of Kendo and Iai. And there are actual documented, known cases where there were actual sword charges on Okinawa during the end of the war. One of the people that brought Kendo over to the US after the war was a member of the GHQ, MacArthur's GHQ. His name was Benjamin Hazard. He's a professor at San Jose State, or was a professor at San Jose State, who taught Asian history. And he was in military intelligence, and he actually witnessed some of the battlefield charges with swords. He also is one of the people who brought Kendo over to the US after the war. So it's kind of muddied as it transferred from Kenjutsu into Kendo. Actually, during the occupation of Japan, General MacArthur abolished, or actually prohibited, the practices of martial arts. Kendo, Iai, Judo, all of those were shut down during the occupation. And there was a resurgence afterwards. I tried to see if I could find the story that Dr. Hazard wrote, and I'm still trying to find it. He gave it to me at one time, and I can't find it right now, but I need to get it back out. That once the martial arts started to how would you say, once they started to come out of the closet again, or come out of the woodwork, and they allowed them to be practiced, they started getting rid of a lot of the martial techniques that were in Kendo. Kendo was actually very brutal before the war. You could use foot sweeps. You could tackle your opponent if his kamae, his stance, was not good enough and he couldn't attack you with his sword. There were chokes. If you took a person down, you could actually choke them out with their armor if they allowed you to defeat them and get them to the floor. So it was actually very brutal before the war. And once they started bringing it back out, they tried to turn it into more of a sport. And it swung way over to the sport type, and a bunch of people in Japan realized they were losing a lot of the discipline, and they started swinging it a little bit more towards the discipline side.